December 1966. Saigon. Tan Son Nhut Air Base. Your boots hit Vietnamese concrete for the first time. The danger isn't theoretical. Within hours, the base that's supposed to be the safe entry point can be taking mortar fire and sapper attacks. And what happens in these first 24 hours matters, because it rewires how you sleep, how you walk, how you trust the dark. In this video, we're breaking down the 4 first-day experiences veterans kept describing for decades after Vietnam. The first incoming, the first night on the wire, the first booby-trapped step, and the first time you watch a man bleed out while the radio keeps talking. Stay with me, because the most haunting part is how fast it becomes normal. You don't arrive in a war. You arrive into noise. Jet engines. Diesel. Wet heat that feels heavy, like a hand on your neck. And then you learn the lesson nobody can teach you in training. The rear can be the front. At Tan Son Nhut on the night of December 3rd into December 4th, 1966, base defense records describe a maximum security posture. Posts, patrols, sentry dogs. Yet the alarm still comes in after midnight. The first warning is radio traffic from the perimeter, and within minutes, explosions and small arms fire start stitching the darkness. After-action accounts describe defenders responding to reports of unidentified men near the wire, then realizing the attackers are already inside, moving toward aircraft and revetments. Some reports estimate small assault groups, single digits at points, using the gaps and shadows like tools. A veteran later recalled that the shock wasn't fear at first. It was disbelief. I just got here. How is this happening? And when the firing finally thins out, you realize something worse. This was your welcome. So you make it through the first contact. Now you have to live through the first night, when your body begs for sleep, but your brain refuses to let go. A few hours later, you're on the wire, or near it depending on your job and your unit. Maybe you're Army out of Bien Hoa, maybe Marine near Da Nang, maybe a smaller outpost up country where the perimeter is sandbags and faith. Here's what most people miss. The first night is rarely a big battle. It's a test of nerves. Guard shifts often run in ugly blocks, midnight to before dawn, when the air cools just enough for you to stop sweating and start listening. Trip flares are set. Claymores are faced outward. The radio whispers in short bursts. In an oral history for Vietnam-era service, a veteran described the moment a trip flare snapped to life and turned the world white. The senior man in the position ordered him to fire, and he did, because in that first night, hesitation feels like death. You don't know what you shot at. You know what you felt, your finger moving while your mind tries to catch up. By morning, you've learned the second lesson. The dark doesn't just hide the enemy, it hides your own mistakes. And that leads straight into the next experience, because once the sun comes up, you don't get to rest. You step outside the wire where the danger isn't loud anymore. It's waiting. After that first night, the world narrows to a trail, a paddy berm, a hedgerow, a tree line that looks like every other tree line. This is where it turned deadly for thousands of men, the first booby-trap. Official summaries and lessons learned reports hammered the same point. Booby-traps weren't a sideshow. They were a system. Mines, grenades rigged to tripwires, punji pits placed where a tired man would step without thinking. And the numbers were never comforting. During the war's heavy years, yes. Reporting repeatedly noted that a significant share of casualties came from mines and booby traps, not firefights. The reason was simple: you can't outshoot what you can't see. Medical papers for Vietnam describe hundreds of punji stick wounds treated in theater, dirty injuries designed to cripple, infect, and slow a whole platoon, not just one man. A combat engineer later recalled it in plain language. Every step became a question. Not where is he, but what's under my boot? Psychologically, it's suffocating. You move slower. You scan more. You trust less. And sooner or later, the invisible threat becomes real. Because the first time a trap goes off, you don't just hear the blast. You hear what comes after, the medic's voice, and the radio calling for a helicopter. Up the road, sometimes the same day, you meet the final first-day memory, the first casualty that looks like a man you know. It might be a patrol outside Siu Chi with the 25th Infantry Division's area. It might be the Central Highlands with an airmobile unit pushing out from Pleiku. It might be a marine operation near Chu Lai. Different maps, same moment. There's a sharp crack or a dull blast, and then a shout that changes everything. Medic. Army medical histories and unit journals describe how quickly Vietnam forced adaptation, especially the reliance on helicopters to pull wounded men out of places vehicles couldn't reach. But fast is relative when you're kneeling in mud, pressing bandages onto a wound that won't stop bleeding. A medic later recalled the worst part of the first day wasn't the gore. It was the math, how many minutes you had, how few hands you had to work with. The helicopter, when it comes, doesn't arrive like a movie rescue. It arrives loud, exposed, kicking dust and debris, asking the enemy to take a shot. And when it lifts off, you're left staring at the empty space where your buddy was. That's when the first 24 hours finishes its work on you. You understand the cost, and you understand it can happen again in the next hour. Because the haunting part of Vietnam's first day isn't that it's the worst day. It's that it teaches you what the rest of the tour will feel like. Men remembered the smell of the airfield and the first incoming. They remembered the flare that turned night into daylight. They remembered walking like the ground itself was hostile. They remembered the first time they heard a wounded man try to stay quiet. And they carried those hours home, often without talking about them, because the first day wasn't just an introduction. It was the moment the war moved inside their bodies. For the soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors, and for the Vietnamese civilians living under the same sky, those first 24 hours were not a story. They were a hinge point. And once that door closes behind you, you never go back to who you were the day before.